joined by Bruce Hamilton, the president and general manager of the Kelowna Rockets. Clearly, this was an important thing, getting a WHL team into Kelowna. So take us back to what was happening. You were with the team in Tacoma, and you needed a new home. And I guess Kelowna just was the beneficiary of that.
Yeah, we started with an expansion franchise in '91 in Tacoma, Washington, and we had to go through some hoops to get there because the league, there's rules that you can't be within 60 miles of each other, and Seattle was right on the cusp of 60 miles, and they had to agree, the Seattle franchise, to let us move into their territory, and they did. It was a wonderful rivalry for them. And we played in the Tacoma Dome, which was a 22,000 seat facility, which was way too big for us, and more particular, the fans had a tough time because there was a real gradual slope from the seating. It was big enough for football.
Yeah, people complain about the sight lines. I imagine it was pillars in the way, but it was just more or less the way it was sloped.
The gradual slope, yeah. It was interesting. The first seats to sell all the time were right around the glass. So we had like 8 rows right around the glass, and then there was kind of a moat, and then the seats started up into the building. And it was a remarkable building the nights we played Seattle. We would, have over 15,000 people in there for those nights, and it just rocked. It was a wooden domed roof, so the acoustics were unbelievable. But it was when you played Saskatoon or Prince Albert, and it dropped down to 4,000 that it made a pretty vacant looking building. And so after 4 years, we decided we were going to look around and find a different place to move to, and Kelowna was one of the cities, Boise, Idaho was the other, and thankfully we chose Kelowna, and there's been a few interesting stories along the way, but the team survived, and I like to think now it's probably one of the stronger franchises in the Canadian Hockey League.
No doubt about that, but you seem like such a Kelowna guy, but here it was really just you needed a place, and there was Kelowna, and you really just got to know it after you arrived here with your hockey team.
Yep, I'm just Bruce from Saskatoon, really.
Yeah. So there it was, 1995, and you're in the Memorial Arena. It was a great place to watch a hockey game. It really was, but not big enough for you.
Oh, it was a wonderful place, Kent, to watch a game because you were right on top of the play, and the problem was it could only get 2,000 people in there, really. And that doesn't do it in the economics of our league, and nor would the league allow us to play in a facility like that for long.
And the league was kind of on your backs a little bit to get going with getting a bigger facility to play in, weren't they?
Well, for sure they were, and there'd been a couple moves along the way. One was with a fellow by the name of Gordon Oxley. Was going to.
Okay, yeah. Now this was the guy that proposed. You're laughing already because it did seem laughable. A hockey arena with a retractable roof.
Yeah, well, only in Kelowna, I guess. But interesting. He started a lot of things that I think led to the building coming eventually. That it was going to be a private partnership to start with, and then eventually go to the city, which is going to happen. But
didn't all that nonsense though slow down the city getting into discussions with someone who really had the capacity to build something?
Yeah, terribly, and probably cost us 2 years in that other facility. But thank goodness, eventually they came along and hooked up with Graham Lee, and he had the foresight and the wherewithal to build the building, and it is what it is today, and we're 20 years into it now. It has flown by, and it's still a very, very good facility. Needs upgrading like everything else does, technology-wise, but the bones of it are still great.
Yeah, it's almost hard to imagine Kelowna as not being a WHL city. There was one earlier on, the Kelowna Wings, back in the 80s.
Kelowna Wings played here, and then they, I think, became the Spokane Chiefs.
So back in the 80s, was it okay to have a 2,000-seat arena?
Yeah, you probably would have a chance to survive, but most of them were, in the 3,000 to 5,000 seat range. Right. And of course, in those days, if you were operating on a $700,000 or $800,000 budget, you were one of the higher budget teams. Now, a lot of us are operating in well over $4 million budgets just because of the cost of having these teams today, the travel, all those things that are tied to it. But,
Right.
It's the size we have is the perfect size, to be quite honest with you, for this city. People often think, we should have 7,000 or 8,000. Well, there's not that many events that you're going to get that many people to. So this size has been excellent.
I think there's been a few nights when you wish there was another.
Yeah, there is, and yet, I think that if you see, I'd rather see the building full than have 1,000 empty seats. So, and it's better for, you create some demand, and it's the same for when concerts come here. If you had 10,000 seats and you end up with 6,000 people in there, it just doesn't work.
Yeah. So 4 years in Tacoma, 4 years in Old Memorial, and now you're set up in Skyreach, which is now Prospera. And since then, it seems that the Kelowna Rockets franchise is sort of the one that the league points to as being one that's run well.
Well, I like to think that. We've worked hard at the kinds of teams we've had here, but, I really am a real believer in the kind of people you have here, too. I think that you have to be, when we bring players here, we want them to be good people first and foremost, so that they leave here with something more than just hockey players. One, they're going to go to school for sure, but two, grow up, because that's when they come here. They're coming here as kids and they're leaving as young men. And I just think it's so important that the direction they get from us before they leave here and go into the real world is real important for them for life after hockey.
Because not everybody's going to be an NHL player, right?
About 1%, 2%.
And you can talk about that because just to back up your own backstory a little bit, there you were drafted to play in the NHL, but you never got a skate on NHL ice.
Nope, and wouldn't trade it for anything today. It was a great experience in life for me, 4 years of playing in the minors around the United States. So
you still had a hockey career, though. You turned that into a hockey career.
And it worked good for me. My attachment to being drafted by the St. Louis Blues, Mr. Emil Francis was the general manager then. And funny, he's the guy that he went to Hartford after that, and he hired me as a scout there. And that really started me back in, and then I was a fireman in Saskatoon for 5 years while I was scouting also. So it was a great learning curve for me, I guess you would say. And then that kind of parlayed into the experience I got with the Washington Capitals as the head of scouting for them out in the West. Really led to us getting this franchise and me having the hockey background and a bit of the business side of it to get into what we did with this.
So your own personal experience with, getting into hockey, never quite realizing the NHL dream, but yet benefiting from it all. Does that sort of affect the way you see the players on your teams?
Yeah, and I think, Kent, one of the important things is you meet a lot of people along the way. And I think in any walk of life, if you start to remember some of those people along the way and then you swing back to them, somewhere a door opens for you and you get an opportunity to do something. And today's different than it was certainly when we started. University wasn't the biggest thing for us as players. Yeah. We're all going to play in the NHL. These guys, by the time they're 18 and 19, have a real good idea whether they're going to be there or not. And if they're not, then they're doubling down on their school and making sure that it's at a level that they can get into one of the big universities and continue going, because it's all paid for them. So It's a great opportunity. And
you want people, regardless of where life's path takes them, to look back at their time as something that pushed them forward, didn't get in their way.
That I want them to the best thing for us is when guys come back and say, man, I grew up a lot playing here and I learned a lot about life when I was here. And that's an important part of, it's part of life. You finish high school, go to university. That's kind of the chain of life as you go, or go into the real world as a job, a labor, or whatever. But I like to think that when they're here, they're learning, and they're certainly going to go to high school, but they're also learning about time management is a big thing, but how to conduct yourself in public, and to be the key thing for me. And I tell our players this every year: I want good guys. I want good people. We'll make you a better player.
Right. I was always concerned, the way the league is set up and the age of the players. They're moved out of their hometown. It disrupts their education, but yet you make sure that it doesn't set it back.
You have to. That's an obligation that when I sit down with parents and their boys are 16 or 17 that are going to move here, it's a way bigger challenge for the parents than it is for the player. But today, with all the hockey academies around the country, many of these players have been away from home long before they get here now, where
Right.
it used to be this was your first time away and it was tough. Now, people travel so much to be involved in this game at a younger age that it's not near as big as it used to be.
What's the future for the WHL right now? Is it looking solid?
Yeah, I don't think we've ever been more solid. We don't have any franchises really in trouble, and the big thing is, we're still surviving in Prince Albert and Swift Current. Those cities are tremendous the way they support their teams. There's 30,000 people live in those places, and they're still competing at the same level as all the rest of us. And it's no different than us against Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver. They're big markets, and we have to find a way to find our niche and make sure we're doing the best job we can to make the people here enjoy what the product is on the ice.
Well, Bruce Hamilton, thanks very much. It's really good having the Rockets part of our community.
It's my pleasure.
Terrific, and thank you for watching Kelowna Now.